Welcome to the Learner Centered Collaborative Podcast. I'm your host, Katie Martin, and joined today by Rebekah Kim. Dr. Rebekah Kim has dedicated her career to advancing equitable practices in education. A former classroom teacher, she spent 12 years as an elementary principal in Highline Public Schools, as well as serving in leadership roles in central office for 6. She's consistently demonstrated a commitment to creating inclusive and empowering learning environments. Currently, she serves as the Associate Superintendent of Teaching and Learning in the Kent School District. In this capacity, she continues to strive to bring positive change and elevate educational opportunities for all students through intentional collaboration and cohesion. Her role encompasses overseeing school leadership, supervision, curriculum development, instructional strategies, and professional development initiatives. I am so excited to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here in this space with you.
So we've spent some time in different spaces at league meetings, but I really haven't had a chance to go deeper into some of these things that both of us are super passionate about. So I'm really excited for this conversation.
Me too.
But let's start from the beginning. What are some of the key experiences that you can share that have really shaped you into the leader that you are today?
I appreciate that question. I would say being born as a second generation immigrant from South Korea, my parents came to Milwaukee, Wisconsin in the early 70s. And I had the opportunity to be in a household where my relatives all immigrated to the United States. And during that time, my school age cousins and I would go to school together. And I didn't realize it at the time, but when I became a teacher in hindsight, I realized how unjust their experience was because English was not their first language. Every cousin that was school age that immigrated to the US was always taken down a grade level. So that approach really took on this mindset that if you do not speak the English language, then you are going to be receiving less rigor, not at grade level. And when I reflected, when I became a teacher in a highly diverse school district with a high immigrant population, I realized how wrong that was. So as a teacher, I started in Tukwila, Washington, which is one of the most diverse school districts in the country. And I had the opportunity and the blessing of teaching students who were new to the country, some who had never experienced school in their life.
Wow.
And so my understanding and reflection from my earlier years to becoming a teacher and seeing what equity really meant, that you need access to the resources, that communication with families and building those relationships and understanding and seeing the strengths of students was something that really was a pivotal moment for me, and where I really arrived in understanding, and I'm on that ongoing journey, but understanding what equity means and the richness of the diversity and the immigrant experience. So taking my own personal experiences with my parents whose English is not their first language, and my own relatives immigrating, to becoming a classroom teacher, those came together as my understanding and knowing that this is a core value and something that my heart became very passionate around. And so as I moved on into the principalship and working in district leadership, I held on to that core value. And then, of course, becoming a mother, I have 2 teenagers, and just seeing their experiences, even in a more diverse community with a high Asian population, just seeing that racial divide as students become older in their intermediate elementary grade levels, you start to see where those racial divides happen, and you see your own children understand and learn what their identity is. Now, of course, as a parent and who I am, they know who they are and where they came from. And I make sure that they're very proud and that they see others and that they embrace that diversity. But as a parent, I absolutely bring in that perspective. And then, of course, as a district leader, I have the opportunity to be in this space where we are consistently ensuring that we see the whole child, that we're student centered, and we see diversity in all different forms, socioeconomic, gender, in, language as all being assets and richness to seeing the whole child.
Yeah, I love that so much. The assets that we bring, right? And so often, as your experience, highlighted, we focus on the deficits. We focus on challenges or differences as deficits rather than seeing how they really shape the whole human.
Mhm.
And having a second language, what a gift, what a blessing. Every time we travel, I'm always amazed that multiple languages people speak, and it makes me so sad to not be able to build on that in many of the schools here.
Mhm. I went to Korea for my very first time in my whole life just a couple months ago.
Wow.
And I was raised as bilingual, and it felt so great to be able to communicate. The apps were a little bit harder to use, like the rideshare apps, because the language was vocabulary I wasn't used to. But it was really empowering. So I also see that as a gift that my parents gave me to raise me as bilingual.
I am always so sad. Learned to speak Spanish in high school and it was my minor, but I'm not conversational. And so, as soon as I got out of school or went to live in a different country, I realized that my knowledge of it was so far behind where it needed
Mhm.
to be. And just the opportunity to be able to have multiple languages, I'm always disappointed that I didn't get to develop that in earlier on in
Not
ways
too
that
late.
you're right.
Duolingo is the thing with the high schoolers.
I know, and my kids are taking Spanish too. I should definitely just jump back in and see if I can learn with them. And I know a big piece of it is just like being vulnerable and trying it out instead of being so afraid to speak. So I'll have
Mhm.
to maybe that I'll set that as one of my goals.
Good for you.
You talked a little bit about being a mom and how that shaped you. I would love to, hear a little bit more. Being a mom is super influential in my own career. But how does it really help you think about your work as a leader and your vision for what's possible in education?
Like to think about, when the people that we hire in schools, the people that we hire to lead work centrally, would I want my own child to be taught by or led by the individual that I'm hiring? That is absolutely a lens that I bring in. I also think about I'm a mama bear at heart for my friends, my family, for my children, of course.
Mhm.
People who know me in my personal life know that I'm a mama bear. And I like to bring that personal mama bear advocacy into the way that I lead in education. And that means being a strong advocate to ensure that the way that we speak about our children, the way that we teach our children, the high quality resources that we're bringing in front of our children, and their instructional experience. I could go on. But in that way, I am a mama bear and an advocate to ensure that our students are getting high quality learning and schooling experiences.
Yeah, I always think about it like if I want this for my kids, if I want them to really be able to show up in school as the people that they are, the amazing humans, the
Mhm.
strengths, the gifts that they bring, I want that for all kids, right? That all kids and their educators and leaders
Mhm.
also need to be able to show up in spaces and really be able to build on the things that they bring to the community.
Absolutely. The last thing, and something that I will carry forever as a parent and as an educator, is seeing the whole child. I just shared with you before we started that, my daughter is starting college searches, and we are not strength based yet in the way that we assess and
Hmm.
measure success. So when I'm helping her to navigate, look at schools, I have to look at GPA or schools that are testing optional or no testing with college entrance exams like SAT. And then what is the area of focus where her strengths and her story will be valued? We
Yeah.
don't have tools out there that allow for that. And so I want for our children in K 12 public education and then in post-secondary to be able to, or into to higher education, to be able to share who they are with all of their strengths, all of their assets and skills that are not measured in a college entrance exam, that doesn't show up in their GPA. What
Yeah.
are the other talents and skills that our teachers are not aware of because we don't have systems that give you that full entire snapshot? Only the high stakes areas.
Right.
I feel so
Yeah.
passionate about it that I focused on a multi-year project, and I focused my doctoral studies around strength and equity-based data literacy, because it's so important for me that we have systems that see the whole child and see all of the strengths that they bring that might not exist in the metrics and the systems that we currently have.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, so we're going to dive into that for
Yeah.
sure. But it makes me think too. I know we said we both have high school students,
Mhm.
and when I see what's prioritized, GPAs and the competition that happens, taking the higher classes to get the best
Yeah.
grades, um, to get into the best colleges, right? That what it does, it almost narrows that whole child focus
Mhm.
because you're forsaking all of these opportunities when you're only prioritizing doing, getting into the highest classes, hours of homework.
Mhm.
And I talk to my daughter a lot about it, that it's not worth spending hours and hours and hours doing homework if you're not going to be living your life and developing these experiences.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of negotiation that she's
Mhm.
thinking about. Do I want to take an AP class? Does it really matter? Do I want to enjoy my life and, and continue to have experiences now? I mean, and it's sad to me that kids are having to make that calculus at such an early age,
Mhm.
even when it's contrary to what we know, like
Yeah.
they need to be successful in life beyond school.
Mhm. Mhm. And I don't want to discount, the amazing efforts and achievement that students who do really well,
Hmm.
and not to say that my daughter doesn't do well, but it doesn't share that full picture, and
Right.
it doesn't show the other life skills that are going to be applicable and be enhanced as they go through college or career, the future that they choose. And those are some of the important skills that we just don't tap into or are aware of, with the way that we are working in education today.
Yeah.
So all that to say, as an educator, I'm always wearing my parents' hat. When I hear about mental illness, when I hear about tragedies and trauma, I always think, gosh, I wonder what the parent might be experiencing or the household is experiencing through what we hear about. And so, not just the academics, I also think about, the mental health, the social emotional, the basic needs. Are
Yeah.
those all being met to ensure that students have readiness to benefit from the way that we're doing teaching in schools today?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. So there's different projects and there's momentum, as you mentioned, really thinking about measuring what matters, right? We're starting to see pockets, although it's not quite there mainstream yet. We're starting to see pockets of people understanding that we do need ways to measure the whole child, and we do need ways to communicate the strengths and talents of young people. So you
Mhm.
mentioned worked on a multi-year project.
Mhm.
I'd love for you to share a little bit more about the project and what you learned working through that. It's a big
I
question.
could write a book about all the things I learned and all the challenges and mistakes that I made. But coming back to the core value around building a strength and equity based student profile, I learned about the importance of collaboration and distributed leadership, that you can't just build a profile that you think are all of the values and metrics that we would want to see around that full snapshot of each student,
Hmm.
but that you need stakeholders to contribute to identifying the questions that you want that profile to answer. What are the existing metrics that we have? And what are the metrics we don't yet have?
Right.
And so co-constructing that is really key. Then you understand and you learn about all of the different technical aspects And I am not a technical data person by nature or by training, but just by learning through the experiences that there's not one ideal platform that you can buy off the shelf. That if there's data that doesn't yet exist, and this is code constructed by stakeholders in your system, then I would be shocked if that there was a thing that you could buy off the shelf that's customized to that,
Right.
unless you find something amazing that's customizable. And then learning how to just trust the different partners and vendors that are out there, major lessons learned. And then being able to get that cabinet and that superintendent sponsorship. I worked closely with one of my beloved superintendents and lifelong mentors, Susan Enfield, who was a huge champion for this work and connected us to be able to apply for a grant, a generous grant from the Gates Foundation to build the thing. It's going to require a lot of budget and a lot of finance to be able to sustain the building of it and to have the right talent on your team to build and understand it and
Mhm.
to be flexible and creative. So as we're building it, I think the important takeaway and core value was understanding that the perspectives that come from our different cabinet sponsors at the time, the different departments that say, well, we need to really understand social emotional regulation. Is that a component that's connected to the academics? So that when we have this tool that's built at the end, that we're not just look at the GPA or the credit deficiency, we're seeing that there's a discipline thing going on, that there's attendance issue, or that they have talents and skills in some type of sports or some type of leadership that we wouldn't have known otherwise. And to be able for any teacher or any staff member to be able to look at that student profile and see the richness of all the things that encompass that child is a way to be able to build relationships and importantly, to do some root cause analysis. Instead of dismissing that they might not be on their way to graduation or they have a GPA that's below average, or look at their attendance or discipline. Discipline often comes with adult biases. So what can we learn from that? So there's so many different ways in which looking at this full profile helps us to think about root cause analysis, to build the relationships, because now you're really understanding who this whole child is, and for the child to feel seen and valued as a result of this. That's the hope.
So you have this dashboard or this learner profile that allows for educators or basically anyone to access who's working with this learner to
Mhm,
see a broader picture of who they are, not just a GPA, but they're able to see multiple data points
mhm,
to potentially have conversations with students, better understand what's going on, and
mhm,
and share their gifts and strengths.
mhm, mhm.
So are students also adding to it? Do they have access to upload their information?
So I haven't seen it to full completion. I've
Okay.
moved on and I'm very happy in my new position and new district. But that was, this is a multi-year journey and development. But the idea there is then for, um, one of the metrics that was used for social emotional and sense of belonging is a student facing survey.
Okay.
Students are able to contribute to that component. As far as talents and skills and interests, that would be a survey that needs to be developed because it doesn't yet exist. And then how do you think about the back end to bring those metrics into that system so that they're all speaking the same code or language or set of rules?
Yep.
That's the technical body of work that needed to happen. And we were using EdFi standards at the time. And so those are the next steps that we needed to take. And that's why the multi-year journey, the ongoing funding, and being committed to the work is essential.
Yeah, as you were talking about it, I was writing down some notes of things that really stood out that I think for this project and a lot of projects as we shift education systems
Mhm,
are critical. And you talked about co-construction. This
mhm,
isn't something that is going to come from the federal government. It's not even something that's going to come from our states. it's really about the co-construction in local communities,
Mhm,
getting that buy-in. And we see
mhm,
that all over the country. What it matters to you all here? What do we want to look at? Where's their buy-in? And then the technical aspect of it cannot be separated, right? We need the tools that are also co-designed with communities to be customizable because there isn't just one way that people are going about this work. And then maybe most importantly, you talked about the champion. This, someone who can really help people understand, shepherd the work, because it is not just done overnight. It is hard to tackle systems that have been in place for many, many years and
mhm.
structures, to really start to dismantle processes and practices that don't work in
Yeah,
favor of new practices.
yeah.
And the long-term commitment, right? Like the long-term commitment to say we're going to see this through and we're
Mhm,
going to keep testing that out. And I'm so grateful for leaders in the system who are willing to do that, because if we are going to shift models that really allow for young people to be seen and develop the skills that we need in our modern world for
mhm,
life, we
mhm.
have to dismantle systems and really evolve to create new practices.
Absolutely.
So one of the things you all are doing in Kent, you mentioned you're in a new district and this
Mhm,
in a newer role in the last couple of years. One of your strategic priorities is to ensure you prepare students to be global citizens,
mhm,
and that's your local community's priority.
mhm.
So for you as associate superintendent, what does this look like? What are the key strategies, programs, resources that you are putting in place to make this huge shift?
Thank you for that question. I'm really excited about the work that we're doing around our strategic plan. We're just hitting year 2, and our superintendent, Israel Vela, has been leading the effort to ensure that we are, number one, coherent across our system, and number two, looking at the strategic plan goals as our North Star.
Hmm.
So much that we are committing for the second year, our leadership, all administrators, I think 160 plus of us in this district, come together monthly to focus on shared learning, collaboration, and application in owning all 4 of our strategic plan goals.
That's huge.
It's huge. I've had the value and benefit of being able to be on this planning team and lead some of these sessions, and have been working with really smart leaders who are contributing to what does it look like to do shared learning, understanding that we're not all teaching and learning. We have facilities, operations, human resources. How do we see ourselves in all these goals and do shared learning and collaboration to build that cohesion? So going back to global citizen, when we want to prepare students to be a global citizen, what does that even mean to us in Kent? And so
Right.
we spent several sessions. One of our executive directors and a couple of other team members led some work around what it means to be a global citizen and going through a process to co-construct what it means to be a global citizen by by our thinking, our critical thinking skills, our hearts, our mind, our actions. And so that co-constructed definition draft was just shared with our teaching and learning and school-based leaders, and will be shared this fall with all leaders as a foundational common definition
Hmm.
to charge school leaders to identify, based on our definition co-constructed of a global citizen, what do we want our student learning experience to look like in our schools and in our system? So what I'm really proud of the work that we've done in this district is that we've brought in our stakeholders to co-construct this definition, to then unpack and articulate and align within each school community what we want that school experience to look like, aligned to what it means to be a global citizen. Some examples of some commitments aligned to becoming a global citizen is high quality instruction. What does high quality instruction mean? So again, on repeat, doing some shared learning,
Mhm.
some application process, and some work I'm really excited about in partnership with Center for Educational Leadership is a year-long instructional leadership academy, calibrating our learning around the vision of what would a student experience look like if a student was experiencing happiness, joy, and pride
Yep.
in school. And that is the definition of the equity work that happens through Center for Educational Leadership. And that came from Student Voice. So exciting. Um, and
I'm like
so,
smiling so big over here because like those themes are just so resonant, and the way you articulate just aligns very much with the way we think about it, the Learner Center Collaborative. But it's really about starting with how students centering the learners in their process. But if we have a new vision, we have broader outcomes for the whole child, we have to rethink what teaching and learning looks like, and we have to define it and get so clear. So that's why I love your focus on coherence, but
mhm,
also the co-construction, because
yeah,
you can't just take it from a textbook and read it and,
yeah,
or from a manual. It really has to be understood and felt and believed.
mhm. So the commitment there is so strong that we're going to spend a year learning together. And then there's about almost 110 of us that are engaging in this learning, all teaching and learning leadership and school leaders. We're going to be in cohorts of 15 and we're going to do implementation walkthroughs. And we're going to practice and apply that shared learning in
Mhm.
those smaller, more intimate cohort spaces. And so the hope there is that we calibrate and we learn on high quality instruction so that we prepare students to be global citizens. So it's just really exciting to see all of the work come together that we've been trying to co-construct and build in the last year.
So cool. Well, we'll have to follow up
Yeah.
and see some of those examples. But the other piece, like getting into classrooms, you can't lead from an office, or I mean you can, but being able to be in proximity to what's happening in classrooms and opening classroom doors, I think is some of the best professional learning that is
Mhm.
often overlooked. And when we don't get to see what other people are doing, we miss out on that opportunity for that shared learning.
Mhm.
That's very, very exciting.
Very
Um,
exciting.
so one of the things that I also have, heard you talk about and you mentioned already is your mentor, Susan Enfield.
Mhm.
And so she's been on the podcast and someone I adore. But having mentors who support you and help open doors. Can you just talk a little bit about what that means for you in your own career, and how that helps you think about your own leadership?
I when I think about the greatest impact on my leadership, I very often talk about my mentors. And I have many mentors.
Mhm.
Um, my first principal, who is a woman of color, and that was in 2000. There weren't a lot of leaders of color. There weren't a lot of leaders that looked like me. And so it was from those earlier years where I really sought out mentors that I revered and valued and saw the way that they modeled strong leadership.
Mhm.
And so I would seek out informal mentorships and executive coaches. I've had amazing executive coaches over the last several years, and it comes with the different seasons of life. But oftentimes they have started as mentors in conversations around my journey. And so, based on the different season of my career, I've had the benefit of partnering with different executive coaches and then informal mentors who just have become lifelong, like a Susan Enfield, like Karen Kodama, who was my principal mentor, who modeled high expectations and always showing up with high quality customer service. But those mentors have always understood and seen all of me, come with no judgment, and understand the direction in which I'm trying to go or coach me through challenging situations. And the most impactful mentorships are always in the back of my mind. Gosh, instructional leadership and high expectations. That's my former CAO. I still call her or text her to say, "Hey, I just need a thought partner. Can you help me out with this?" She's retired and she's always still available. So I will always look to my mentors and my role models, and I definitely have to name my parents are my role models too, who have really modeled strong work ethic and the grind of the immigrant life and trying to raise three girls. Um, they continue to push and hold me accountable for high expectations. I've told my dad to like kind of calm down a little bit now, but it's it's been uh it's been a really huge gift to have those right people in my space in life at the right time.
I love that, and I've had so many mentors that have helped shape me and really been amazing, amazing support systems. And I'm often struck by those who don't have the networks and
Mhm,
don't have mentors that they feel that they can rely on.
mhm.
And I know you're part of many networks, right? And you even mentioned today all the different people that you collaborate with and learn from that make you better and stronger as a leader. So, what advice do you have for somebody who might be listening who's like, where do I even go to learn from somebody else? Where do I even begin? I'm a
Mhm.
central office leader. I hear this a lot. I'm a central office leader who's feeling stuck. I want something different or I want to move us forward, but I don't even know where to begin.
I just got off a call a little bit ago around setting up mentorship and coaching for leaders and what that looks like for the upcoming school year. And I shared my journey of I get coaching all the time.
Hmm.
And I think that we need to have a mindset that coaching doesn't mean that there's a problem to solve, but that it's a support that we need.
Yeah.
Education is so challenging, especially today, post pandemic. We're trying to support our students and the gaps are widening. It is challenging, and we need to be in that space of being a lifelong learner. That coaching does not equal there's an issue or a problem. And then finding your trusted resources. There's a lot of coaching and a lot of consultants that I'm seeing pop up all over on LinkedIn. I think that's amazing. And thank you for that. But to vet out what those resources are, I think really comes from the networking. And if you don't know where to start, having the right trusted people in your professional world that can refer you and finding the right match. We worked with an organization that provided coaching, and one of the first things I asked was, can we do a vetting process to make sure that the coaches and the coachee are aligned and that they can reciprocate
Hmm.
what their goals are and their vision of their partnership might look like? And for our leaders of color, do you have options for other leaders of color or leaders who, identify in similar ways so that there is that connection and not having to explain or to do any code switching to explain, well, this is how it feels for me as a man of color. And, if they're working with a person who's not a man of color, like having to do that explanation sometimes it works, but
Yeah.
sometimes there's that comfort level of working with people that are alike. And so I always make sure that those options are available and it's a right match, either for myself or for leaders who are looking for coaches.
Mhm. Yeah, I really appreciate that. My background is very much in instructional coaching and teacher development, and um, I've often seen coaches in districts that become like focused on problems rather than support and growing. And
Mhm.
shifting that mindset for our teachers to leaders is so critical because then it also will help our students in the classroom too see that they also need coaching and support, not because something is wrong.
Mhm.
And then your point about just being open and being a learner, and seeking out those networks. I
Yeah.
think we get so busy and so in the hamster wheel sometimes,
Yeah.
forget to say, wait, I got to stop and I got to talk to somebody or ask for someone to help me think through my problems will actually help get us farther faster rather than take more time.
Mhm. Agree.
All right, we're coming to the end of our time, and so I
Okay.
have some rapid fire questions for you. Uh,
Okay.
just a couple, whatever comes top of mind.
Okay.
First one, what's one thing we should stop doing in education?
Stop making it about politics and adult issues and center it around our students.
Yes. What is one thing we should start doing?
Bringing in the voices of students and doing something with what we learn from those voices.
Absolutely. What should we keep doing?
Committing to innovation and thinking outside the box
Great.
and staying
What,
committed to it.
and staying committed to it, seeing it
Mhm.
through. Great. What is something that you are focusing on or learning as an individual right now?
Two things: less self-reliance, more team reliance. That comes from Next Level Leadership
Mhm.
that we read as a cabinet recently. And I know that this is said often, but work-life balance.
Let me know when you figure that out.
Yeah, because you can't let the job kill you. And so health matters, and I'm gonna be 50 in a couple years, and I gotta be healthy for my
Yeah,
children, and I want to keep doing this for a longer time.
great. What is one thing that many people might not know about you?
Hmm. I go by Becky outside of work. I I love hip hop and I love to dance.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll remember that next time I see you
Okay.
at a league meeting.
Okay.
Um, do you have a favorite quote or saying that guides you?
I just used it the other day with my kids. When they go low, we go high. Shell Obama.
I love it. Love
Yeah.
her. Last one. What is one thing that you are grateful for right now?
My children.
Same. All right, so we'll end with just what are your hopes for the future of education as you
Mhm.
think about what's possible?
I hope that we can get this right for our children. We have gaps that are widening: discipline disproportionality, academic achievement. We need to get this right and do better, but we have to lean in together. And leaning in together means focusing in on the students and staying student centered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Rebekah, this has been awesome. Thank you for the work that you're leading, the way you approach your co-creation, and I am excited to keep learning with you in this journey.
Me too. I appreciate the time of getting to share my story and look forward to hearing more about your story in the future.